This computer. Okay. Hi, Pauline. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
So if you just want to, introduce yourself, tell us where you graduated, what you're doing now, that'd be great.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Houston, Texas, and I graduated from Emory in 2017 with my BA in History and International Studies. And I spent 2 years working for APAC in New York, and now I'm a rising third-year law student at George Washington here in DC.
Great. It's an exciting time to be a law student, and an interesting time to have worked at APAC, I'm sure.
Yeah, I tend to place myself in very apropos situations. Hopefully whatever I do next will be slightly less exciting, but we'll see.
There you go. So tell us a little bit about Jewish life at Emory and sort of how you engaged with it, and what people should know if they're looking at Emory.
Yeah, so I think the Jewish life at Emory is absolutely phenomenal. It was one of the things that most attracted me to the school, 8 years ago or whatever it was, that I was looking at schools and looking at schools that had a really strong Jewish community. And I think it's something that I've become honestly somewhat more appreciative now as an alumni, and seeing how the school has continued to support its Jewish community and how they've maintained relationships with their Jewish alumni. So we have a really, really large community on campus. I think close to a quarter, a third of the school identifies as Jewish, which is awesome. And the community is super diverse. There's tons of different ways to get involved and to be Jewish on campus, whether that's taking, courses in Jewish history and Jewish studies and Hebrew. You can take Yiddish. I mean, there's all sorts of different things you can do, to becoming involved with some of, with Hillel, with Chabad, with Mayor, with some of the Jewish Greek organizations on campus. So there's lots of different ways to be Jewish on campus. And I think as a whole, like I said, the administration is very, very much supportive of the community. And I think, unfortunately, that's something that's become somewhat, it shouldn't be unique, but I think how supportive our administration has been really unique. One thing that stood out to me, they actually had the dean of the college and one of our, really highly sought after professors, Deborah Lipstadt, who's one of the foremost experts on Holocaust denial. They went on like a listening tour to meet with alumni. So they came to DC, they came to New York, Chicago, I think some of the like big alumni hubs. And they had these events where they just talked about anti-Semitism, and she talked about her book, and they, discussed the climate on campus and allowed alumni to answer questions, ask questions. And I asked the dean afterwards, how did you guys come up with this? And he said, we were just kind of brainstorming. And I said, do you know if any of, our peer institutions have done this? And he said, they haven't, but they definitely should. So I think that's something that I've been really, really impressed by.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I do think that, there are a lot of issues in recent years. And I think the way an administration deals with it says a lot about the school, and, makes students feel a lot more comfortable going to a place, because everywhere there's going to be, some sort of anti-Semitic issues and anti-Israel. And, at the time we're recording this, there's a lot of conflict going on. So I think how the administration reacts is really important.
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
So was Jewish life a big part of your search when you were looking at colleges as a high schooler?
Yeah, for sure. I went to a Jewish day school for my entire life, and I knew that I wanted a really strong Jewish community. So I didn't really apply anywhere that wasn't on, that list that Hillel publishes of like top schools, Jews choose or whatever it's called. So yeah, it was definitely something that was a factor. I like I said, I was a history major, so I looked at, their history departments, and I said, are there people that do Jewish studies? Is there opportunities, what's the climate like on Israel on campus? It was probably a little bit better, back in 2012 and 2013 than it is now at a lot of schools. But I think that's something that is super important for students to consider. So yeah, looking at the academic offerings, looking at, how students are Jewish on campus, and is the rest of the campus supportive of that, or is it, kind of hostile? And I think that Emory is very, very much welcoming to its Jewish community, and honestly to all communities on campus.
That's great. You touched on this a little bit, but is there anything, special or unique about the Jewish community at Emory that you think stands out, that people, whether it's something you did or just something you know about, that you think students should know about as they're considering Emory?
I think the community as a whole is just very, very welcoming. And I think there's lots of different ways to engage. I had friends that were on the boards of different Jewish organizations. And then I had friends that would just, go to a Shabbat dinner or a Rosh Hashanah or whatever it was every once in a while. And like, so opposite ends of the spectrum, from people I know that were, very, very observant, to people I know that would maybe fall below, Reform Judaism in their practice. But there's just lots of different ways to become involved. And another thing that I liked is that like our Chabad rabbi and the Hillel rabbi were really close. They would host, I'm sure they still do this back to school bagel brunch, every year, and every Jewish organization on campus is there, and they're all tabling, and it's a great opportunity for first year students to meet existing students and to learn about the different organizations. So it's very much a collaborative environment. And obviously I can only speak to my own experience, but that's something that I found to be really, really helpful, was that you never felt like any organization was like, pitted against the other. Everyone wanted everybody to find their place within the Jewish community on campus.
Yeah, absolutely. I've noticed that at different campuses, sometimes the Chabad and Hillel are kind of competing, and others, they really work together. So I think that's something important. Are there any, you mentioned some of the other Jewish organizations, any that stand out to you that people should know about?
I think from an academic side, I think that the history department and the Jewish studies departments are really, really awesome. A lot of people I know, myself included, took advantage of taking those courses, which I thought was really great. And it's overall I think a very pro-Israel campus. For the most part, there, unfortunately have been some incidents, but I think that as a whole, the community has really rallied in support of its Jewish students. And I think that that's something that's really helpful. And I think that's something the administration has supported. We just got a new president this past year. So I obviously haven't met him, but he's the grandchild of, I think, or I guess he's the son of Holocaust survivors. And I think that, that certainly, says a lot. This is something that is clearly important to him, and, something that he's going to bring to the community. So I think that that's pretty unique. I'm trying to think of anything else, but yeah, certainly from an academic side, from a social side, I think we have like 4 or 5 Jewish Greek organizations on campus. So there's the opportunity to get involved in that way. But also a lot of, things involving, networking and things like that, and the ways to connect with alumni. So I think, yeah, overall, very, very supportive. I've met, now that I've graduated, with a couple different Emory alumni when I was working in New York, or people that I met, and everyone was just so supportive. And so.
That's great. Well, thank you so much. Any sort of parting words of wisdom to high schoolers who are in your shoes from, gosh, almost probably like 8 years ago at this point?
I would just say that I know it can be a super stressful process, and it can, it can seem really, really personal sometimes, but it's not, and it'll all work out. And there's a lot of really, really, really amazing schools, and whichever one, you decide to attend, we'll be lucky to have you on their campus. So.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.